In the mid-1700s, the catacomb tradition made its way to Paris, and the city was running out of space to bury its dead. The only major cemetery where people could be buried was called like Holy Innocents Cemetery. It was at capacity. Whoa. So they started burying people in mass graves instead of like individual graves. But still, it wasn't enough. Well, in the spring of 1780, people who lived near the Holy Innocents Cemetery, they started experiencing medical problems out of the blue. I know at first I was like, ghosts. No ghosts. Medical problems. So I guess a lot of them were experiencing like breathing problems and they were vomiting. So authorities, they investigated like what was going on and they came to a horrifying conclusion. Horrifying. The decomposing bodies in the cemetery were releasing decomposition gases. And it was coming through the dirt. Aww. Yep. So these gases would rise through cellars to the ground floor of homes. And people were just like, if I could breathe, I can't really breathe. But if I could breathe, they were like breathing it all in. I got one good nostril. I know, imagine you're just like minding your own business watching Full House and you like have this cough that's just like going on forever. And then you find out it's because you've been inhaling dead people gas. I'd be like, that kind of sucks. Also, how did the authorities not automatically realize it's a cemetery? I know, ghosts. I'd be like, it's the ghosts that are making you guys sick. You're possessed. Case closed. You're welcome. Well, like once they figured out like what the problem was, I guess the people in charge of the Holy Innocents Cemetery had to get rid of some of the buried bodies. So workers came out and like dug up the bones, the situation. I guess they thought that watching bodies being dug up in the middle of the day would be terrifying. So they decided to do this at night with a torchlight. Yeah, you know, to make like the whole thing less creepy. Totally makes sense. Once they had the bones dug up, they were moved to the catacombs. And the whole smelly situation became like, it was, you know, out of sight, out of mind type of situation. Experts believe that around 6 million people are now buried down in the catacombs. And the public is now allowed to go down into the catacombs and see those remains. Yeah. I guess like over 550,000 people visit the catacombs every year. Let me know if you've been. I was gonna go I went many years ago and I was gonna go, but then I was like, wait, I think I'm claustrophobic. So I was like, I don't think I'm gonna do that. So that's my review. Thank you. But let me know if you went. A little earlier in the 1600s, over in the Americas, indigenous people had their own death rites and traditions that often differed from tribe to tribe. The Apache and the Navajo tribes were quick to bury their dead, and this is because they feared that the dead would resent the living and I guess like start messing with their lives. The Apache would also burn the house and possessions of the person who died, and then they would like pack up and move to a new home. I guess the reason they did all of this was for purification reasons, so the dead person's spirit had no reason to return. Even if they did return, they moved, so the spirit like couldn't find them. They're like, oh shit, not here. But different tribes had more positive relationships with their dead, like the Sioux tribes, for example. So they thought of the spirits of the deceased as being able to help the living, so they would reach out to them when needed. In 1600s colonial America, death was everywhere. Hi, death is here. Especially when it like came to young people, which sucks. Like 33% of children died before reaching adulthood. Life expectancy was not great. The average male lived to 29 years old and the average female lived to about 20. So, you know, people were kind of like dropping like flies. And funerals were pretty simple because they had to be. I mean, one was happening almost every single day. So the night before burial, the family's nearest and dearest would gather to like make sure the dead person didn't wake up, you know, just in case. So I guess they couldn't bury a person until everyone had gotten a good look at the deceased and all agreed this person's dead. Bury him. Then there would be like a feast with lots of food and drink and to celebrate. the deceased, and everyone would get sloshed. Families would go all out and like buy expensive rum, and it was said to be part of like the grieving ritual for the pilgrims. It makes sense. Numb the pain away, you know? But things couldn't stay that simple forever. Funerals started getting a lot more expensive. Not just like the burial process, but during this time it became popular to give out favors at a funeral. I was like, what? Favors? Like what? I was thinking, oh, must be something cute and small, like a lollipop or like a card with like the person's face on it. And you're like, oh, that's so nice. No, listen, back then, people were giving out solid gold rings. Huh? I was like, okay, I'd go to that funeral. The colony started going off on these gifts. It was like what they did. I don't know. I guess some people were going bankrupt, okay, because of the expensive gifts. And it apparently had gotten so out of hand that the government had to step in and I guess put some like limits on these lavish funerals. Yeah. In 1761, Massachusetts passed an act to retrench the extraordinary expense at funerals. I was like, what's that? Well, it basically said that if you gave out expensive scarves, gloves, wine, rum, or rings at a funeral, you would be charged 50 pounds. I guess they did this because they wanted to stop making funerals so expensive. So, you know, the average citizen could actually afford to bury their dead and not have to like give them everyone expensive ass shit. I mean, you would think like, it's funny to say this now, but like burying people shouldn't bankrupt anyone. But look at us today. Anyone who's had to like deal with burying someone in modern day knows that Massachusetts law like didn't put an end to funeral lavishness. Really? Are people giving out gold rings still at funerals? Let me know down below. Invite me to your funeral. I'll come. What the Puritans did was kind of like a sneak preview to what we have going on now.